I never thought a simple Instagram post could hit harder than a punch. There it was, my dad, Richard, raising a mimosa beside my brother Jason. My stepmother beaming. The caption read, Sunday brunch. Real family time, red heart. My thumb hovered over the screen, frozen. I could almost hear my father's laugh, that smug little smirk curling under his gray mustache. The same one he wore the day he told me, "You weren't invited, Haley. This brunch is for real family." The same week Jason had stolen $4,750 from me, every dollar I'd saved from tutoring kids after class and folding sweaters at Macy's. That was 3 years ago. Now, I sat in my Manhattan apartment, sunlight spilling across the marble counter, my phone buzzing with messages from clients who called me Miss Morgan instead of the screw-up daughter. I sipped my coffee, its warmth bitter and sweet, like closure I hadn't quite earned. My reflection in the window stared back, steady, polished, but not unscarred. And then my assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Haley, your father's online too. Says it's urgent." For a second, the room went quiet except for the faint hum of the city below. Richard Morgan never called unless he wanted something. I straightened my blouse, took a deep breath, and answered. "Haley Morgan speaking." A pause. Then that familiar drawl. "Honey, we need to talk about Jason." I felt it then, the past clawing its way back. I was 21 when it happened, young enough to still believe family meant protection, not punishment. Back then, I was juggling college classes and 2 part-time jobs. Every tip, every dollar bill I folded into my worn leather wallet felt like progress. I was saving for a tiny apartment in the city, somewhere that smelled like freedom instead of disappointment. Then one night, I came home to find my drawer empty. My savings gone. All $4,750 of it. Jason was on the couch, playing video games, his sneakers kicked up on Mom's old coffee table like nothing had happened. "Where's my money?" I demanded. He didn't even flinch. "Relax, Hales. I borrowed it. I'll pay you back." Borrowed. That word still burns. When Dad came home, I thought he'd help. I thought, for once, he'd take my side. Instead, he glanced between us, jaw tightening. "He's your brother, Haley. Stop making a scene." "A scene?" I choked. "He stole from me." Jason smirked, that same crooked grin I'd later see in every nightmare. Dad sighed. "You're overreacting. It's just money. Family forgives." But it wasn't just money. It was my future, the hours I'd stayed up studying, the blisters on my hands from double shifts, the pride I carried in proving I didn't need anyone's pity. That night, I packed my suitcase. One small bag, clothes, laptop, a photo of my mom before she died, and Grandma's gold locket. Inside it, she'd written a note on faded paper. "When they close the door, child, build your own house." I remember holding that locket against my chest, feeling its cool metal against my skin.
Dad didn't stop me.
He didn't even look up from his newspaper as I stood in the doorway. Jason muttered, "Don't be so dramatic." I left without another word. The air outside was cold that night, heavy with the kind of silence you never forget. I didn't know where I was going, only that I'd never go back begging to be loved. Because if family could steal from you and still get brunch invitations, then maybe I needed to redefine what family meant. Leaving home felt like jumping without a parachute. I crashed into the real world hard, scraping by on instant noodles, working shifts that blurred one day into the next. But even when my stomach growled louder than my ambition, I never touched that locket. It stayed around my neck, cold and constant, a reminder of who I was trying to become. I got my first real job at a coffee shop near downtown Brooklyn. The owner, Mary Ann, was this fierce, 50-something woman with silver streaks in her hair and the kind of laugh that filled a room. She'd been through her own storms, divorce, bankruptcy, starting over. One night, after closing, she found me behind the counter sketching designs for reusable cups and loyalty cards. "You've got an eye for this," she said, leaning over my shoulder. "You ever think of doing marketing?" I laughed. "Marketing? I can barely afford the subway." But Marianne saw something I didn't. She started teaching me bits about branding, design, how to pitch ideas, little lessons between espresso shots and mop buckets. She even let me redesign her cafe's look for free. Within 3 months, her sales doubled. That's when something inside me clicked. I opened a tiny freelance account online, HM Designs. My first client paid me $50 to build a social media ad. I cried when the money hit my account, not because it was much, but because it was mine. From there, I built slowly, stubbornly. I worked nights, studied tutorials until sunrise, sent proposals to anyone who'd listen. Some laughed, some ghosted, but a few said yes. And those yes built my foundation. 2 years later, I was running a small creative agency, 3 clients, a shared office, and enough income to finally sleep without checking my bank balance first. That's when I got a message from Jason. "Hey Hales, have you been? Dad says you're doing something with computers now." I stared at the screen, half smiling, half sick. I typed and deleted a reply, then just muted the chat. They didn't deserve to know. Not yet. Online, I kept it simple. Pictures of coffee cups, sunsets, city lights. Nothing that hinted at success. My family still thought I was barely scraping by. And maybe I liked it that way. There was power in being underestimated. Then one morning, I opened my email to find a message from a luxury skincare brand. They'd seen my work online and wanted HM Designs to handle their next campaign. That deal changed everything. Within a year, I wasn't just paying rent. I was buying my own apartment in Manhattan. I hired staff, signed clients I used to dream about, and even opened a second office uptown. Still, through it all, I never called home. Never bragged. Because deep down, I was saving something bigger than revenge. I was saving the moment when silence would speak louder than any "I told you so." I hadn't heard my father's voice in almost 3 years before that call. When I finally agreed to meet, he chose a restaurant uptown, a place with chandeliers shaped like teardrops and white tablecloths so crisp they looked ironed by angels. I walked in wearing a navy suit and heels that clicked like punctuation marks on the marble floor. Every head turned, but I kept mine high. He was already there, sitting at a corner table. Jason beside him. Both looked uncomfortable, not used to waiting on me. "Haley," my father said, standing halfway before sinking back into his seat. "Dad." My voice came out calm, practiced. "Jason." Jason looked older, heavier around the eyes. He gave a sheepish grin. "Hey, Hales." I sat down. The waiter poured water, but my hands stayed still. Dad cleared his throat. "Jason's had a bit of trouble. His business went under. He, owes a few people money." "Of course he did." Jason leaned forward. "I just need a little help, Hales. Alone. You're doing good now, right?" That sentence hit harder than he probably realized. "You're doing good now." As if the years I'd spent clawing my way up were some lucky accident. I looked between them. My brother who'd stolen my savings, my father who'd let him, both now asking for a piece of what I'd built from their rejection. "Before we talk about money," I said softly, "can I show you something?" I pulled a sleek black tablet from my purse and opened a portfolio, elegant campaigns, glossy product photos, international brand logos. "This," I said, turning the screen toward them, "is HM Creative. My company." Jason blinked. "You work for them?" I smiled faintly.
No.
"I own them." For a few seconds, no one spoke. You could almost hear the chandeliers hum. Dad's expression faltered. That same smirk he used at brunch, cracking just slightly. "You're telling me you built all this?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "While you were having brunches about real family." Jason shifted in his seat. "Come on, Hales. Don't make this about the past." I leaned forward, voice even. The past is exactly what made this possible. I let them sit in silence as I scrolled through photos of my offices, the Brooklyn studio, the Manhattan loft, my team celebrating their first $1 million campaign. Every image was proof that I'd done more than survive. Dad exhaled, slow and heavy. "Haley, I didn't realize." "No," I interrupted. "You didn't want to realize. You wanted to believe I'd fall apart without your approval." He stared down at his glass. Jason's jaw clenched, embarrassment burning across his face. I reached for my purse and slid an envelope across the table. "That's a cashier's check," I said. "For $4,750. The amount you stole, Jason." His eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "It's not a gift," I added. "It's a receipt. Because from this moment on, we're even." Dad looked up, guilt flickering behind his eyes. "Haley," he began, "maybe we can start over." But I was already standing. "You can," I said quietly, but without pretending I was never family. I pushed the chair in, gave one last glance at the man who taught me silence could be crueler than words, and walked out. Outside, the city wind tangled through my hair, cool and sharp. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small walking away. I felt free. A week after that lunch, my phone buzzed again. "Dad." For a moment, I almost didn't answer. But something in me, not anger, not pity, just closure, made me swipe right. His voice was quieter this time. "Haley, I owe you an apology." Jason told me everything. About the check. About how you helped him even after. He trailed off. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch until it felt honest. Finally, I asked, "What do you want, Dad?" He hesitated. "I want to fix things. You were right. I wasn't there for you. I thought I was protecting the family, but all I did was protect the wrong person." For the first time in years, I heard something in his tone I'd never heard before, humility. So I decided to give him a chance, but on my terms. "Okay," I said. "We can talk. But if this family's going to start over, there are conditions." He exhaled, almost relieved. "Anything." "First," I said, "Jason needs to pay back what I gave him, not in money, but in effort. I've got a youth mentorship program at my company. He'll work there. No handouts, no shortcuts." Dad murmured, "He'll hate that." "Good," I replied. "That means it'll teach him something." "Second," I continued, "no more pretending. If you want to be in my life, you do it honestly. No comparing, no condescension, no backhanded comments about who's real family." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "You've changed, Haley." I smiled faintly.
No, Dad.
"I just finally became the person you didn't think I could be." There was a pause, then a shaky laugh, half sad, half proud. "Your mother would have loved that." That one sentence cracked something inside me. The part that had stayed frozen since she passed. For the first time, I didn't feel like a daughter begging to be seen. I felt like a woman defining what being seen meant. Over the next few months, things shifted. Jason joined the mentorship program, awkward and out of place at first, but he showed up. I watched him learn humility, accountability, patience. Dad started visiting, not to lecture or boast, but just to sit and listen. Sometimes we'd share coffee in the office kitchen, saying little, but the quiet wasn't hostile anymore. It was healing. I didn't forgive overnight, but I did start letting go of the weight that used to live in my chest. Because power wasn't about revenge or money. It was about peace on my terms. And that, finally, was something no one could steal from me. It's strange how peace doesn't arrive like thunder. It comes quietly, like sunlight slipping through curtains you forgot to close. 3 months after that phone call, Jason stopped by my office unannounced. He looked different, cleaner somehow, more grounded. He held a small box in his hands. I wanted to give you something," he said, setting it down on my desk. Inside was a check, not just for $4,750, but for double that amount. "I didn't know how else to say thank you," he added, "for giving me a chance instead of turning your back like I did to you." I smiled, warmth catching at the corners of my eyes. "You didn't owe me money, Jason. You owed yourself change." He nodded, eyes wet.
Yeah.
"I get that now." After he left, I sat there staring at the box, at the reflection of my own growth staring back through the glass office wall. That evening, Dad called again, this time just to ask how my day was. No favors, no tension. Just small talk. It felt like the first normal conversation we'd ever had. Before hanging up, he said softly, "Haley, that locket you always wore, your grandmother would have been proud." You built everything she hoped you would. When the call ended, I unclasped the gold locket and opened it for the first time in years. The paper inside was more fragile now, creased and fading. When they closed the door, "Child, build your own house." I smiled through tears. Because I had. Brick by brick. Dream by dream. And when that house finally stood tall enough, the same people who locked me out came knocking, not to take, but to learn. That's what healing looked like. Not erasing the past, but rewriting its ending. Now, every Sunday, I host brunch in my own penthouse kitchen. The table's long and open, filled with my chosen family, my team, my friends, the people who showed up when no one else did. Sometimes Jason comes by, sometimes Dad. No drama, no bitterness. Just laughter. And every time I pour coffee into my cup, I whisper the same line under my breath, half prayer, half triumph. Turns out, you don't need an invitation to the table when you've built your own.